Welcome to the PCOS Lab. I'm Dr. Angela Potter. If you're tired of Band-Aid solutions and being told your labs are fine when you don't feel fine, you're in the right place. We use clinical engineering to move your body out of survival mode and into the biological safety required for motherhood. Let's get to work on your breakthrough. Most conventional PCOS treatments are focused on a very narrow goal, forcing ovulation, using medications like Letrozole or Clomid as a mechanical override to trigger ovulation, operating under the assumption that if an egg is released, the clinical objective has been met. But if you have been on a medicated cycle where you have had a perfect medicated cycle, you know that ovulation, it's just one component of this much larger physiological puzzle. So when we focus exclusively on the ovaries, we ignore this broader biological context. Every day, I hear from women who tell me, I feel like my body is broken, or I can't even do the one thing a woman's body is supposed to do. If you feel like you can't even accidentally get pregnant because you have no idea when or if you're even ovulating, here's something I want you to hear. Your fertility, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Your fertility is a mix of this complex internal dialogue between your brain, your metabolism, your immune system, who are all talking to your ovaries and uterus. Welcome to the PCOS Lab. I'm Dr. Angela Potter, and today we are entering this final and really most comprehensive stage of the Fertile PCOS clinical blueprint, and that's phase 3, which is hormone harmony. And this is where things shine. Because while standard medical approach, it looks at that ovulation event through a microscope, I shift the gaze to your internal environment. So today we are going to unpack these hidden clinical factors that are going to dictate whether your body has this physiological safety to sustain a pregnancy. Factors that exist far beyond your ovaries. If your system, if it's metabolically underpowered, if it's chronically inflamed or locked in this survival state, medication cannot override that biological reality. Just because you get the egg out of the ovary does not mean you are able to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. And your goal is not just to get a positive pregnancy test. It's to have a healthy pregnancy. In phase 1 and 2 of the blueprint, I help to set that metabolic foundation, to get that ovarian architecture at a place where the body is naturally ready to release an egg that has grade A materials and has the building blocks, the progesterone, at a level where it structurally can support a pregnancy. And it's here in phase 3 where I address the whole body infrastructure. So I'm evaluating these systems for you that many practitioners overlook. I would go so far as to say most practitioners are going to overlook, particularly in your traditional fertility clinics where the goal is just to get the egg out of the ovary. But what we need to look at are systems like your HPA axis, your thyroid, and the gut-brain ovarian axis. If you want your fertility to truly click, and I know you're here because you do, we need to stop viewing the ovaries in isolation and start architecting an environment where life can thrive. And today I'm showing you why fertility, it's not just an ovary problem. It is an environmental one. So we're moving your body into this state of harmony where pregnancy, it's just this logical, biological outcome. Let's first address this elephant in the clinical room. There's an obsession with forcing a result. Conventional fertility treatments, they often treat the human body like this simple machine. And the logic behind that is if we provide the hormone, if we provide that state that the egg can get out of the ovary must respond. But your biology is far more nuanced than that. First off, we know that not all medicated cycles are successful. So just by setting up that environment to force the egg out of the ovary, it's not always the golden ticket. And second, we know that even if the egg does get out of the ovary, There are still many more steps between that and a successful pregnancy and holding your baby in your arms. And that's your goal. It's not just to get the egg out of the ovary. Your goal is to have a healthy pregnancy and be healthy so that you can be the mother that you want to be. So when we use those medications to force a cycle without assessing the rest of the body, that's essentially attempting to override your biological safety mechanism. If your body isn't ovulating, it is usually because it's detected something, a systemic imbalance, a resource deficit, something, and it is smart and it is protecting you by holding off on ovulation. And we need to find what that system is that's causing that alarm to say that your body needs to stop ovulation and protect you. We need to find the cause of that and turn that around for results to happen. Because shouting over those signals with medication, we aren't resolving the root cause. We're ignoring the body's warning signs. Your body has innate power and intellect. And if it is giving you those warning signs, there is a reason. So we have to stop forcing the ovaries and start evaluating these systems that go completely overlooked and yet are speaking directly to the ovaries and the uterus. So let's talk about a few of these systems. The first system is your HPA axis, and that's the direct communication line between your brain and your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are what regulate your output of your stress hormone cortisol. And this is exactly why the advice to just relax, it's medically incomplete. I don't view stress as a feeling, and certainly it causes many feelings, and I work with stress and anxiety all day long, every day. But what's happening is that it's this chemical driver of your symptoms. So when your brain perceives this chronic depletion or high pressure from, say, work or just modern society of go, 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 well, it triggers that HPA axis to release cortisol, your stress hormone. Well, what does more cortisol do in the body? Yes, it gives you feelings of stress and anxiety, but when we're talking about your fertility, what it does is it forces your pancreas to secrete more insulin. And that's a protective mechanism that the body has when you have too much cortisol and too much stress. This is a critical link. So even when you have a perfect diet, this chronic stress can keep your insulin levels elevated. And what is insulin then going to do? So particularly for PCOS, what you need to watch for is that high insulin, that is going to then instruct your ovaries to overproduce testosterone. So let's sum this up. When your HPA axis, it's hyperreactive, okay? You have stress going on at work or in your life, you're not sleeping well, something like that. It creates this cascade. Stress is going to drive cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and that drives insulin, which then spikes testosterone. And what is testosterone going to do? It is going to shut down ovulation. It's going to create that warning signal to the ovaries to tell them that this is not a good time to ovulate. This is why you feel like you don't even know when or if you're ovulating, because that signal, it's buried. Your body, it's responding logically to this stress signal, and it's trying to protect your body, and that's pushing that insulin, pushing that testosterone, but it's directly impacting your ovaries, directly sending signals to the ovaries to not ovulate. But it's starting back at your brain and your adrenal glands, which at first glance don't seem to have anything to do at fertility. And that's why you have to architect this to understand how these different systems are all interconnected. So that was the first system, your HPA axis. System number 2 that we're covering today is your thyroid. So your thyroid, it regulates your cellular energy. Basically, it runs the metabolism of the body. This is a vital piece of the puzzle that standard labs often miss. I will tell you that when somebody tells me that their labs have been fine, that their other doctor has told them that their labs are fine, and yet they still aren't ovulating, still aren't having regular cycles, thyroid is one of the top places where I am going to find the actual cause of why that person isn't ovulating. And that's because their standard medical doctor hasn't done that next level investigation into the thyroid. So if your thyroid function, if it's subclinical, which it means it's in that space where it's not functioning properly, but most likely your other doctor missed these signals or reading these numbers on your labs, your body recognizes that. So being in this subclinical place, it still recognizes that as not having the energy required to sustain a pregnancy. So if the thyroid is regulating your whole metabolism, the whole energy in your body, it doesn't have the right building blocks to be working at its top speed, at its functional speed, then it's not going to be able to talk to your ovaries. It's actually going to shut off that portion of it because it's also trying to make sure that your heart is functioning, that circulation is getting all throughout the body, that hormones are getting to your brain. It has to focus on those survival tasks over reproduction. So if the energy isn't available from your thyroid, your system, it remains in that state of conservation. But once we optimize the thyroid, and I see that every day, and we restore that cellular energy, that metabolism of the body. So then the thyroid is working at a level where it's saying, okay, I have got enough energy. There's plenty to work on the cardiovascular system. There's plenty to get to the brain. This body is functioning as it's supposed to. And now it's time to turn on the green light for ovulation. So do you see that we need to get the thyroid to a place where it is able to say, yes, this system, it finally has the resources necessary to move forward. And then the third system that I want to cover today is your gut. Your gut health, when you're going through a treatment that is ovary-centric, right? Your medicated cycles focused on getting the egg out of the ovary without first looking at gut health. This is why those ovary-centric approaches, why they fail. Because they assume that digestion is this completely separate issue. But it isn't. Your uterus is actually listening to your gut. So let's explore this a little further. If your gut, let's say your gut, it's triggered by a food sensitivity or maybe an infection, and you have no idea that that's going on because you don't, maybe you've got some mild bloating or, you have some stomach cramping in the evenings after dinner. But hey, you just think, well, everyone has that every now and again, and just keep on moving through your day, through your days. But what's happening there is that if you are sensitive to a food that you're eating every day, or you have this low-grade infection in your gut, what that's doing is that it's releasing these inflammatory messengers, and they do not just stay localized to your gut. It's not like, okay, well, sure, you have a food sensitivity, and that is just staying right there in your gut. No, those inflammatory messengers, they're going to travel through your bloodstream throughout your entire body. And they are going to go to the ovary and the uterus, and they are going to say, no entry. They're just going to set up signs that say no entry. There is inflammation going on here, and we are just not equipped to have something else come into the body. So see here how you could have this perfect medicated cycle. But if your gut is currently managing this inflammatory fire and setting up these stop posts around, specifically in your uterus, saying, nope, no entry, and your uterine environment is not a welcoming place, do you see how that sets you up for an unsuccessful cycle? Even if your egg gets out of the ovary on a medicated cycle, it's not going to be able to implant if those inflammatory markers are stopping it. And that inflammation, that started way back in your gut. I have people saying to me, well, yeah, Dr. Potter, I do have some bloating going on, but why is that a big issue if my goal is to get pregnant? Well, this is exactly it. We have to look at these other systems that are creating this cascade that are blocking fertility that are going completely unnoticed. It is not that your body is broken. It is not that you can't do the one thing that you feel your body is supposed to do. Just because you have had unsuccessful medicated cycle doesn't mean that you aren't able to get pregnant. It's that the system that is impacting your fertility, it hasn't been figured out yet. And it's so common. The conventional fertility pipeline algorithm for treatments, it doesn't address these other systems. And yet, they are directly impacting your fertility. But we've talked a lot about clinical things. Let's talk about a story now so you can really understand the power of this approach. So let's talk about someone named Amy. Amy came to see me. She had been trying to get pregnant for close to 10 years. Okay, 10 years, irregular cycles, not able to get pregnant, failed medicated cycles. I mean, talk about heartbreak for so long. She had been to doctors. Her doctors were telling her that medications were the one and only way forward. And she was confused because they weren't working. Those medicated cycles weren't working. And she also felt like, well, how am I supposed to get pregnant if I'm having all these irregular cycles and no one's telling me how to get my cycles back regular? So then at the end of the day, she just felt broken and like she couldn't do that one thing that she was supposed to do, that her body was supposed to do. And she was frustrated because she couldn't even accidentally get pregnant because her cycles were so unpredictable. So that's when she started going through the blueprint. She went through phase 1. We set up that metabolic foundation for her. She went through phase 2, setting up that ovarian architecture. And when we got to the hormone harmony and looking at her whole system approach, that's when things really clicked for her. Because for her, I found that her body was in this constant state of defense. So one, she was having inflammatory markers on her labs that none of her other doctors had found. She was having signs and symptoms in her body, with her gut specifically, that there was inflammation going on. And that had gone completely untaken care of, unnoticed, really. I mean, for her, it was just like, well, I hear other people having these digestive issues and it's probably normal. And her doctors weren't asking her these questions, weren't doing that due diligence of questioning the gut health connected with her fertility. And so for her, working with me through the blueprint, finally those things clicked. So we had to directly work on her inflammatory system to get that to come down and to support her gut health. So within the first month of her working through the blueprint, she had a 28-day cycle. She had not had a 28-day cycle in years. Moving forward month after month, she was having a 28-day cycle. And for her, it was at month 4, she was pregnant naturally. She was pregnant naturally after 10 years of trying and 10 years of working with doctors who were telling her that medications were the only way forward and there was no other option. This is the power of looking at your systemic health to understand this picture of getting a body that is thriving and ready, full of fertile abundance. And I know that whole body health, it can sometimes sound like this buzzword, okay? Maybe you've heard it in a wellness ad. But in the Fertile PCOS Blueprint, it is a clinical necessity. I have been in practice for over 10 years, and this is the ticket to the fertility results you've been chasing. When you tell me that your body feels broken or that you're heartbroken because your body can't do the one thing it's supposed to, I want you to know that I hear you. It is exhausting to live in a state where you can't even accidentally get pregnant because you're trapped in this cycle of not knowing when or if you're even ovulating. But here is the shift I want you to make. Your body isn't broken. It's actually working exactly as it was designed to. It's just that right now it's prioritizing your survival over your fertility. Whether it's this cascade from your HPA axis or the energy drain from your thyroid, or it's coming from your gut, ultimately, I know what you want. It's not just a positive pregnancy test. You want to feel healthy. You want a body that functions with ease, where your cycles are predictable and your energy is stable. You want to stop fighting against your own biology and finally feel like your body is working as it's supposed to. So in the Fertile PCOS Blueprint, I don't treat your ovaries as if they are failing. I start architecting the environment that your ovaries need to succeed. And when I help you align your thyroid, your gut, and your stress response, that broken feeling, it disappears. You start feeling like your body is working again. You stop feeling that your fertility is something that you have to force. And it's this natural, healthy output of a body that finally works as the way it was meant to. I'm Dr. Angela Potter, and this is the PCOS Lab. It's time to stop waiting for your body to cooperate and start giving it the architecture that it needs to thrive. I'll see you inside the blueprint. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you're tired of the guesswork and ready for a clinical blueprint, it's time to stop researching and start signaling safety to your system. Head over to drangelapotter.com/start to take my PCOS ovulation assessment. In just 2 minutes, you'll identify what's triggering your fertility emergency brakes and get a clear roadmap for your next steps. And if you're ready for a deeper dive, you can book a private PCOS fertility audit right there on the same page. I'm Dr. Angela Potter. Your body is capable, your biology is brilliant, and your future is waiting. I'll see you in the next episode.